Iraq's government puts national reconciliation talks on hold, with Prime Minister Maliki's opponents accusing him of concentrating power in his own hands. Is Iraq's unity government on the verge of collapse? And without a political agreement, could the country be broken up? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Hazem Seeker. Well, a long-awaited Iraqi reconciliation conference scheduled for Thursday has been postponed indefinitely. That decision alone speaks volumes about the growing divisions in the country and its increasingly fractious government. It comes a few days after Iraq's Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki said that talks will be held on schedule and that long-standing differences between the country's political leaders will be addressed.
عندنا مشاكل نعم.
Do we have problems? Yes. We should sit at the national conference table and discuss all Iraqi issues, every single one of them. We have problems with Kurdistan, with the parliament, with the legislative authority. We even have problems with the provinces. We have security problems in disputed areas. We have oil-related problems. We have problems with borders and airports. We will open all these files, discuss them, and find solutions to all of them.
But instead of holding the meeting, Iraq's Parliament Speaker Osama al-Nujayfi announced that holding talks under the current circumstances would only complicate matters.
I confirm that the national conference will not be held tomorrow due to the widening gap between political forces during the preliminary meetings. The atmosphere is not suitable now for holding this conference. We need to wait until views and ideas are settled and the political situation is calm, so that we can come out with the positive results from the conference.
Well, the main issues that were supposed to have been addressed range from power sharing in Baghdad to differences over the structure of the federal system in Iraq. Maliki's opponents say he concentrates too much power in his hands. The Prime Minister controls the vacant defense and interior ministries, making himself almost entirely in charge of Iraq's security forces. Iraq's Sunnis accuse Maliki's Shia-dominated government of trying to marginalize them and of targeting senior Sunni politicians. They point to the arrest warrant issued against the top Sunni official in the government, Vice President Tariq al-Hashimi. The country's Kurds are also at odds with the central government on issues ranging from the development of oil resources in the Kurdish region to the problem of disputed territory. Well, just a few days ago, the semi-autonomous Kurdish region in the north announced it would stop exporting oil because the federal government in Baghdad was not paying international oil companies for their work. So, is Iraq's unity government on the verge of collapse? Well, to help us answer this question, we're joined by our guests. In London, Abdul Hadi al-Hassani, a member of the Iraqi Parliament and former Vice Chairman of Parliament's Oil and Gas Committee. Also in London, we have Sabah al-Mukhtar, President of the Arab Lawyers Association and an independent Iraqi political analyst. Good to have you with us, gentlemen. Abdul Hadi al-Hassani, if I could start with you. What's going on here? I mean, if the parties themselves can't even agree on a time and a place to meet for reconciliation talks, then what hope is there for reconciliation?
The reconciliation is an issue, need two parties who willingly to address the issue in legal system within the context of the Constitution. And I believe when we sit together on that basis, we don't have a differences. When KRG, unfortunately, want to prevail its own opinion, regardless what is the Constitution and even the hydrocarbon law, which is supposed to be the best way forward to regulate the relationship between the federal government and KRG, regional government, and the IOC, International Oil Company, is to be passed. Till now, they are objecting to pass this hydrocarbon law. We hope this issue will be addressed within the contents of how could we work together to unify and to optimize our profit and to regulate our own product for best interest of all parties involved. Iraq is passing through a transformation period. We need the goodwill and the good intention, but the good deed will be better for getting this done now and to move forward. And I believe the dialogue had already started with the president of Iraq, Mr. Talabani, and Mr. Maliki, the Prime Minister of Iraq, to come together and solve this issue, which is a sticking issue, but had been there in Iraq for some time. We need to address them frankly, openly, in their own fiscal and legal system within, and passing the hydrocarbon law as soon as possible. And hopefully there's other law, which is 2-3 more laws, which is the law of oil ministry regulation, and also the INOC, which is Iraqi National Oil Company, and also the revenue law, which is all these laws, if it's come together, will solve all the differences and make everything clear, with the context of that there are 4 annexes in the proposed hydrocarbon law, which is supposed to be converting the law from theoretical expectation to practical expectation.
But how do you expect? Sorry to interrupt. But how do you expect to resolve those differences when so many of the divisions in Iraq appear to be so deep? I mean, we mentioned at the top there the accusation from opponents of Mr. Maliki's bloc that he is concentrating power for himself. The fact that he has never named a defense minister or an interior minister, and that both of those 2 ministries are effectively in his personal control. I mean, isn't there a responsibility on the part of Mr. Maliki's bloc to come to some sort of agreement here, as far as that there needs to be a certain amount of give and take here?
I believe the acting really for the Defense Minister, Mr. Saadoun Dilaimi, he is from the Anbar area and he is there. And also the Minister of Foreign Affairs is the head of the really army power. Is yes, but by law it is when if there is an absent, he could act, the Prime Minister could act for that. But however, I believe this is not the issue now. The issue between Iraq central government and federal government and the KRG is the issue of unification of the constitution and the implementation of constitution. When any part of the Iraq or any party who is being outlawed for any reason, or the restriction and legal system have to be implemented. And that's what's happened with the deputy president of Iraq, Mr. Tariq al-Hashimi, when he fled to Kurdistan. This issue has triggered the differences and enlarged the differences between Iraq and KRG, because the Iraq is at the moment in phase of establishing itself on law and order, not on the anarchy and the political opinion. And that's where we have to move forward, not to move on the matter of opinion, political opinion, but on the right constitution and right law and right unification, to prove to everybody that Iraq is really transforming as fast as possible, with the patriotic feeling is prevailing on the mind of the politician.
Sabah al-Mukhtar, what do you believe the main issues of contention here are?
Well, I think the principal point, there are a lot of deep differences between the various political factions. This is number one. Number two, there is an ulterior motive among all of them to, in reality, to either enhance the piece of cake they have, to increase it, or to get something else. There is no intention of resolving the differences, and they are not resolvable at the rate we are going, because still everybody is talking from their own political point of view rather than addressing the main issues. The issues of the oil, the issues of Article 140 of the Constitution, the Kirkuk problem, the Constitution itself. The Parliament has something like 60 articles of the Constitution needs amendment according to the drafting committee within Parliament. There are great differences when you have the main Kurdish bloc saying that Maliki is a dictator and he is not allowing others, when you have the Iraqi National Committee, that is the Ayad Allawi, is saying that unless the issues of Hashimi, al-Mutlaq are addressed, unless the issue of the independence of the judiciary is addressed, unless the major political figures themselves sit down and have the meeting rather than sending their representatives, and then after a little while everybody pulls in a different way. They are insisting, for instance, on that one because there is no trust among the various politicians, even within the same bloc. So you have a person within a bloc, and after a little while he pulls out and he turns into a different direction rather than staying with his own political. So the problem in Iraq is, one, there are very deep differences which cannot be resolved this way. Secondly, there is no serious intention of resolving the problems in the interest of Iraq. There is an intention of resolving the problems in favor of each faction. So each faction is trying to enhance. Maliki does not want to give power. The Alawi wants to get his committee, whatever it's called, National Agency or National Security Council or whatever. The Kurds are actually, the Kurdish bloc is actually enhancing its position to secede from Iraq. Today we have Masoud Barzani in Washington. He's really addressing the issue of the independence of Kurdistan in the long term.
Well,
so there are very, very major differences.
Indeed. Let's get Abdul Hadi al-Hassani's response to some of that then. Isn't part of the problem here the fact that the various factions are only looking at their own interests rather than the national interests, and they're each looking at their own piece of the pie, if I can put it that way, rather than thinking about the bigger picture?
Road of maps, actually, map of roads has to be really implemented by implemented the laws, and the constitution is supposed to domain this law and domain the political discussion. For example, the council of ministers, it is Mr. Maliki bloc and another 2 ministers with him, only out of really 32 ministers. They are minority there, but however, the decision made in the Council of Ministers, it is collective really, and also it is majority really outcome. So simply to blame Mr. Maliki for something which he hasn't done, we need a goodwill to be able to get government of national unity to perform for the state, building the state, not to build its own blocks and its own political agenda. And that's where we have to really move forward in an idea to think rightly and wisely, how could we come together and make this country is more stable, more flourish economically, and knowledge-based economy, knowledge-based politics is the move forward, using the expertise, using the ability of Iraq, human resources. Is the time. It is the time now to really not look for differences, looking for how could work together to make this possible, i.e. to build Iraq together. And when the election in 2 years' time, the people will decide who will they elect, who will better perform. Let people decide, and not really mislead the people by bringing some really wrong issues as the main obstacle between us and building the country politically, and looking for an excuse to prevent this country to build the awareness and
Mr. Hassani, you say that the wrong
Yeah.
issues are being addressed here, and if you want to work with all of the other partners in government, they say that the main issue is this accusation that Mr. Maliki is holding too much power for himself. As I said earlier, the fact that he's controlling the Defense Ministry and the Interior Ministry, if they say you may not see, or your bloc may not see these as issues of contention, but if your partners in government see it that way, isn't there an obligation on your part to address this?
Simply, we would be more than happy to address this. But however, if you have a majority in the parliament who has been able to address this law or other law, and to be able to make the laws for the best interest of Iraq, not the best interest of that bloc, and that's where people working together. Parliament is the backbone of Iraq politics at the moment. The parliament who will make the things possible by passing laws, which is helping and assisting and building the country. And we believe that, unfortunately, the culture-wise, the knowledge of politicians, unfortunately, some of the politicians come from old era. That is the force and the harassment. It is the way forward to make this law prevented, or to this law be passed, or to get that something which is unlawfully acceptable, and they feel that by force you could get to your own aim. It's time now to change that. Law and order has to prevail, and constitution has to be implemented, and anything which contradicts with the constitution has to be rejected, whether it is good for politics or not. The politics and politician has to work within the constitution, not other way around. We're not going to rotate the constitution for the entrance of the politician, but we want to really round the politician and the political stand toward accepting the constitution as it is. And when we came to right place, right time, we might change the constitution for the best interest of Iraqi people. This is what we inherit. That's what we have. Let us work on what we have.
Let's move on to one of the other main areas of contention, which is oil revenues. Sabah al-Mukhtar, what do you think are the main sticking points there?
Well, I think, first of all, that the idea that all the parties are saying exactly the same thing, that they want the constitution, they want the solution within the law, they want to legislate, they want to advance Iraq. They are all saying exactly the same thing. But at the end of the day, they cannot even agree on the agenda. Should they discuss Tariq al-Hashimi's issues or not? Should they discuss the Kirkuk issue or not? Should they discuss the Peshmerga, whether they are integrated into the army or not? All these issues, they can't even agree on them. They have agreed in Erbil that the government shall be formed. The government shall be formed and Parliament will meet. And until now, the two main ministries have still no minister. The Kurdish bloc is trying to talk about democracy as if they have democracy within their bloc. Ayad Alawi is talking about dictatorship as if he has within his bloc the democracy which is not there. So it's really this continuing to use all these nice terms for Iraq, but in fact not being able to sit down and discuss, because everyone has an ulterior motive. No party has a motive to advance the situation in Iraq, regardless how it is presented, regardless of the issues they rely on. But at the end of the day, when the bloc of Maliki says that the issues, it's the parliament and it is the voting and they are not issuing the laws, these are all excuses and reasons. This just as much as, for instance, the Kurdish region, when they say point blank in his speech, Masoud Barzani said, I think 2 weeks ago or something, that unless solutions are found, we will know what to do. He's going to discuss the issues with the Americans. How do those divisions
that you talk about extend to the issue of oil revenues? Because Iraq potentially can be one of the major oil exporters in the region, if not the world, but that simply hasn't happened. Why is that?
It hasn't happened because it's a complex problem. The problem begins not with the oil law. It begins up the stream. The constitution as it stands at the present moment is a unique situation whereby it provides that the local government or the regional government, its view shall override the federal government. This is a concept which does not exist anywhere in the world, not in the USA, not in Switzerland, not in any country. You cannot have the regional opinion overrides the federal opinion. So this is problem number one. Problem number two is the geography. What are the areas that the Kurdish region can drill for oil or explore oil? They are exceeding the areas which in theory falls within their remit. Thirdly, the problem they have is that at the present moment, the federal government in Baghdad is saying to the oil companies that if you sign with the regional government, then you cannot sign with the federal government. The regional government is exporting oil, not paying to the government funds because they are saying this is oil from the region. At the same time, the government is withholding the funds which should be paid to the companies. So this is a very complex situation. It can only be resolved if the cause of that one is resolved.
Let's put some of that then to
the situation of how do you divide the oil.
I mean, the semi-autonomous region of Kurdistan in northern Iraq announced that it would stop exporting oil because the government in Baghdad was not paying the oil companies for their work. I mean, for all its oil wealth, Iraq still doesn't have an oil and gas law because of differences like this.
Yeah, I agree with you. We've been trying for last really 6 years to pass the hydrocarbon law to regulate the relationship and to prevent any misunderstanding and any misuse. Simply, the Kurdistan contract is PSA contract, partnership, really sharing contract, which is really will prevent significant interest and revenue to the budget of Iraq. And that's why we want to unify the law and hydrocarbon law for the best interest of all parties involved. Since Iraq and Iraqi people is the ownership of all the oil, wherever it is in either Kurdistan or in Basra or in Iraq. As you said, Iraq is supposed to be able to produce in 2017 up to 12 million barrels a day, and we're going to be really going to 10 times more producing of gas from the around 3 gas licensing. But however, the unfortunate is, as I said, it is due to not accepting the Kurdistan region of the law, and i.e. put some sort of different contract, which is, as I said, which is for different region, for different blocks. We know there is a ground field and there is a brown field. The ground field, it is simply will be left to really to the maybe provinces or to the federal. But the brown field, which is already produced or far away from the producing field, is supposed to be addressed within this hydrocarbon law to be able to prevent any misunderstanding. By not passing the hydrocarbon law, we could bring these differences forever. That's why we believe it is the time and the place to move forward to passing this hydrocarbon law.
I want to move on to one of the other areas of contention, Abdul Hadi al-Hassani, and that is the accusations. What do you say to all of these accusations that Iran is increasingly calling the shots and has too much influence in the Iraqi political scene?
I think Iraq is in a situation at the moment is trying to establish itself, and there's other countries trying to interfere in its own business, but Iraq had managed to prevent any interference, whether this is a regional government or it is or countries or from any other country, international countries. And that's where Iraq wants to move forward. Iraq is working with itself. That's why, for example, we see the summit, the Arab League summit had been success. It is Iraq now. This is part of the Arab League. It's working together, want to make success in every level, but there is every country in the around Turkey, Iran, a Gulf state try to interfere Iraqi business, but Iraq want to really say a very clear message to everybody. We need to have a mutual understanding and good relationship between both parties involved, but not on the really expense and the sovereignty and independence of Iraq, whatever the cost. And that's where some countries didn't like it, and we said if we don't like it, that's what we are moving, and we want to do that, and we want to establish a good relationship on understanding that Iraq has its own law, has own people,
does Iran have too much influence in Iraq?
Absolutely, there's no doubt in my mind, and this is a fact both on the ground, a fact that most of the independent observers notice that. It's the region is all saying that. The Western Europe and the US are saying that. They can't all be wrong. Of course, there is a very heavy influence of Iran on Iraq. However, this, I don't think, is the problem with the Iraqi politics. The Iraqi politics at the present moment lies with the Iraqi politicians. All the groups have ulterior motives. None of them is looking at the national interest of Iraq. So, of course, they will not be able to solve the problems. The talk of the oil law, how can you produce an oil law when the Constitution deals with the oil issue in such a crazy manner, which we all know why it happened, and the various advisors and various people who were involved at the time of the Constitution, the corruption and all these issues, which I don't want to deal with. But the problem is Iran definitely has a great influence. It used to be a US influence, but now Iraq is under the influence of Iran par excellence. It is more under the influence of Iran than any other country. It is following the policy on everything, both domestically, regionally, and externally.
You're shaking your head there, Abdul Hadi al-Hassani.
Because as everybody knows that the most of the really trade is with the region with Turkey, and most of the good relationship it is really for last period it is to get very close to many big companies, Turkish companies to Iraq, and Iraq has not a very strong relationship with Iran, neither the influence which everybody tries to exaggerate. Iraq wants to establish a good relationship with all the parties, which is especially the region and especially the neighbors, but nobody believe Iran could have influence the Iraqi people to make decision. Iraqi is making their own decision, and government of national unity had showing that. And however, there is no unfortunate really agenda for the people who want to undermine Iraqi and Iraq government.
We're going to have to leave it there, gentlemen. We're going to have to leave it there. We're out of time. Thanks very much for joining us in London, Abdul Hadi Al-Hassani and Sabah Al-Mukhtar. Many thanks for your time. And that's it for this edition of Inside Story. If you want to send us your feedback, remember, just email your thoughts to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. We welcome all your comments and any suggestions for future topics you think we should be tackling. Join us again 24 hours from now for our weekly look at events inside Syria. Thanks for watching. I'm Hazem Sika. Bye for now.